Good morning. I'm Nancy from Black Sheep Knitting in Needham, Massachusetts. Today I want to continue our conversation. Those of you who've been watching the last few weeks, we're talking about, or I'm talking about, ways to become a better knitter. And we all strive to be good at what we do, whatever it is that we do. And again, I'm going to say this over and over again, you don't get really good at something unless you practice it. So I'm hoping that everybody who watched and who's interested in improving their knitting was knitting this week, that you found carved out some time for yourself to practice your knitting. So one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, which I've harped on for the last couple of years, is gauge. And gauge matters if you want something to fit. And one of the things that you should get comfortable doing is checking your gauge. You need to get a gauge check. We have one in the shop that has kind of a magnifying aspect to it that magnifies. Robin, maybe you can grab one in the back. It's red and it's hanging there. But this is the one that we've all used, or I've used forever and ever. And it has a 2-inch little window here, and you can put it over your knitting and you count the stitches. And gauge, of course, is generally in a pattern is over 4 inches, how many stitches over 4 inches. So this you can easily place on top of your knitting and count your stitches. We have one also in the shop that I highly recommend because this has a magnifier in it. So it magnifies the stitches and makes it much easier to count the stitches. So if you want something to fit, you need to get the correct gauge. You can always come in here and have us check it, but you really should get comfortable doing it yourself. If you've done a gauge swatch at 6 o'clock at night on a Saturday, you're not going to come in here and get it checked. So get good at doing that. Come in, we can give you a little tutorial on how to do that. That said, you do your gauge swatch. A lot of designers recommend that you do a large gauge swatch to really see, and one of the reasons they do that is that they want to see how the yarn they've chosen behaves. And by that I mean, how does it drape? Is it too tight? Is it too loose? And does it work for their specific design? So if you do a gauge swatch that's this big, you can start knitting, and lo and behold, if you check your gauge 4 inches into your knitting, it might be different from your little gauge swatch. So it's really a smart idea to check your gauge again after you've knit several inches to make sure that it's what you think it should be, because you could have done your gauge swatch on a day you were sleepy, on a day you were angry, on who knows what, or just that small amount that you did was not enough to really give you a proper gauge. And it's happened to me where my gauge changed as I knit. So, and don't think you can get away with, oh, well, that'll be fine. You can't. You do not want to, oh, I'm getting a call from Presque Isle, Maine. Who would be calling me from there? It must be spam. So get in the habit of checking your gauge. It's way better to rip out 3 inches of your knitting than to make an entire garment that doesn't fit you. That's no fun. You end up having to give it away. It's a waste of your time. And we always say here in the shop, good knitters rip. You have to get comfortable with ripping something out and starting again. It's well worth it. You're probably not going to pass away tomorrow, so you have time in your life. Sorry to say that. You have time in your life to re-knit something and do it correctly. Again, as I said last week, I hope some of you have practiced dropping stitches and fixing them. If you haven't, I recommend it. It's so worth the time that you put into doing that. The other thing that is a really good idea if you're knitting from a pattern, is to get the right pattern and the right yarn. Very often people would just say, well, I want to make that, and you grab a yarn and that's what we did way back when. But gosh knows if we paid attention to whether it was the right pattern or not. It's important now because these patterns are more and more complex and specific than they were way back when. There wasn't a lot of fitting on, well, that's not true. But things were different, and patterns are much better written these days. So it's really smart to get professional advice, to get some advice on the right pattern and the right yarn for the pattern. Also, although I'm going to tell you something later that's going to be contradict what I'm going to say now, don't try to be the fastest knitter in the world. I have a habit of knitting too fast, and I make a lot of mistakes that way. Slow and steady wins the race, and as you get better, you'll knit faster and faster and faster, or you'll be more efficient. Or you don't have to be. It's not a race. You don't have to be Hazel Tyndall, who's, I think, one of the fastest knitters, and she's not a continental knitter, because really fast knitters are known for knitting continental. She knits the English way, and she has won, I don't know if they have contests, but she's clocked as the fastest knitter. But she is a thrower. But you don't have to be, because you can be much more accurate. Your stitches can be more even if you're going at a steady pace. The other thing, and I may have said this last week, watch yourself knit and see what's happening. I think I did say that. Another thing is, have a real positive attitude. Have a can-do attitude. I can do this. Don't start out by saying, oh, I could never do this. You can do anything you want if you want to do it. And we're here to help you if you need help. But don't say to yourself, I could never do that. That's just, you don't need to start out that way. Start out with a really positive attitude, an attitude that will help you be successful and be a good knitter. So the other one thing, lastly, I would say, is look for patterns. If you're looking for something new to do, look for something that teaches you a new skill, whether it's just a simple cable. If you want to learn to do cables, of course, don't start out with something that's got, 5 cables or 10 cables going across a row. Do a simple, like if I were wanting to learn cables, there's a great pattern called the Irish hiking scarf that everybody did, that has just 3 or 4 simple cables going across. Get good at that. And cables are not hard. It's just rearranging stitches on your needle. So find things that you think will challenge you just a little bit. So I want to talk to you today about crochet. We have a very active crochet community here at Black Sheep. We have the amazing Maureen Kelly as a teacher who teaches in 4-week sessions that are every other Saturday afternoon at 1. She teaches here from April through December. So her afternoon class at the moment is full, and they're crocheting all kinds of things. So they asked me, can you show some patterns that would be good for us to do? So I picked out some. Maureen also has been teaching a beginning class. We didn't run it this session, but she will be running another one in August, I believe. We'll let you know when that's going to be, but that's on Saturday mornings, every other Saturday morning for 4 weeks. And she teaches how to do a granny square, and after that you're then qualified to be in her afternoon class if there's spaces. So what I wanted to do was show you some patterns and some yarn that I think are appropriate. The one thing I'm going to show you first is a shawl that I've made a couple of these. This is called the Augusta shawl, and if you can do the granny square you can make this. This is a really, and in fact you could probably, to do this you could probably go online and teach yourself how to make a granny square, but this is the shawl, and it's super fun and super fast. So I used 4 colors. You could use as many as you want, or it could be all one color. The pattern calls for a sport weight, so what I used is this is the Fiber Company Road to China Light, which I love. It's just a beautiful blend, and I'll show you some color choices. It's a blend of alpaca, silk, camel, and cashmere. Could you just imagine that yumminess around your neck? So this is a color group that I thought would be nice together, and they are, this is apatite, cobalt, and tanzanite. So I thought they were a pretty combination together. I have another set. These are neutrals that I love. You know, this would go with everything. And these colorways are smoky quartz. It's a brownish gray, I would call it. This is gray pearl and riverstone. So you could, you know, depending on what you want to do, you could, I think I kind of made these, no, these are not, I think I used 1 skein per color. So I just used it till the skein ran out, so you can see that as the shawl got bigger, the stripes got smaller, obviously, because it was taking up more space. So, but you could do it any way you wanted. You can be really creative with it. And then the other colorway that I think is just gorgeous is this in the pinks, and this is probably like a wine Merlot color. So this is called Morganite, the pale pink, which is such a soft, beautiful color. Carnelian and tanzanite. So I think I showed that in the other combination. Anyway, I love this one. This is a real favorite of mine. So I do recommend this shawl for beginners. It's really easy. And I think I made a couple of these, and I love wearing it. So that's a nice crochet item. And I found another one that I thought was a lot of fun. And the class, I think Maureen is making us a sample, so you'll be able to see it in the shop. And this is called Dragon Belly by Johanna Lindahl. And this is, and I'm sure you have seen, I'll show some on the back, you have seen many knitted shawls that are like this, those of you who are knitters. So the yarn that I chose, this is a gradient. They use something called Sheepgee's Spirit and Sheepgee's Whirl. But anyway, you can use any yarn you want. What we chose for this is Wool Addicts Fit Footprints. So this is a really pretty color changing yarn that is wool and cotton, I believe, but I'm going to double check. It's cotton, wool, and some nylon in it. So these are the colorways. This one's called, oh, they don't have names. These are numbers. This is 03, This is really fun blues and browns and gold in this. This is color 01 and color 06. Oh, I love this one. It's got all kinds of colors in it. And 05. All of these would be great, great ones for summer. And this is 02. Pinks and purples and some greens. So, and these are very generous skeins. They are 400 grams, 400 meters. I never look in the right place. So it's very generous. You could get one shawl out of one of these, not a big one, but if you wanted to do two, or you could even get a solid color and put the solid in between these. So I recommend this one for somebody who wants, again, this is a simple pattern. It's not hard to do. I think the stitch is called a post stitch, and there is a photo tutorial with this, so you can have a lot of fun. And you could probably use this pattern over and over again because there are lots of different color combinations, different yarn. It doesn't call for a, it calls for a fingering weight, but you could certainly use something else and make it larger. Then another pattern I found, and people will love this, there was a pattern that everybody was doing knitting, was called Sophia, which was just a simple, like a kerchief, you know, that went around your neck. So this one is the same idea. It's called Grace Summer Scarf Head Wrap. So you can use it as a summer scarf or a head wrap. So this is just a simple one, and it's worked flat, and I don't know the stitch, but it looks pretty simple to me. And it's made in one piece from side to side, and it calls for, they're using a DK weight. So I chose for that a yarn that we have that I love because it's just so darn soft. It's called Classic Alpaca from the Alpaca Yarn Company. So we have beige, we have Liberty Gray, which is it's just a really pretty gray. We have Ozark Purple, which it's not a dark purple, it's kind of a pretty purple. And this one is called Spruce. I like that one, the one we knit in the shop. It was not in this yarn, but the color is the same. And this one's called Margarita. Pretty green. And Cowboy Blue. I'm drawn to this because everything I wear, as you can see, is blue. This is a fun one to wear in the winter that just to brighten you up is called Hot Pink. Surprise, surprise. And this one is called Summer Sage. I like this, it's heathered, kind of very pretty. So one thing I should say about crochet that some people don't realize, crochet takes almost a third more yarn than knitting does, so you have to count on a little bit more yardage. This little project calls for 200 yards, so 2 skeins of this would get you through it. These are these are right on the front, it says 110 yards, so 2 of these would get you one, and the price is really reasonable, $9. So it's a simple, inexpensive project. Okay, so I'm really bombarding you with patterns, but I want people to have choices, and because we don't talk about crochet enough, I wanted to give you some good ideas. So I have, everybody has made a crocheted blanket, or you know, people who are crocheters have. And a friend of mine who's an antiques dealer told me that the granny square crocheted blankets are hot right now. And she went to a sale, and like people were scarfing up. There were a couple, and people were grabbing them. and young people. So that it's something to think about. This one I like. This is a granny square blanket called Battenberg Blanket by Sandra Paul. This one I like because it's not a traditional granny square. It's pretty, and I think it's a little bit more contemporary than the old-fashioned granny square, although I've seen plenty that are really pretty. But this one really caught my eye, and it's a simple squares, and it here's some more close-up on the back. It's again a simple pattern, simple square, and there is again a video tutorial. So love those, you know, we love those tutorials, so you could probably just start right in. They say the skill level is easy to intermediate, and it calls for a fingering weight yarn. Now you can always change that. Suppose you wanted to do it more quickly, you wanted a heavier blanket, you could do a worsted weight, but remember you need to change your hook size. So hook sizes are generally in millimeters, and if you want to figure out what size you should use, if you changed to, say you changed to a worsted, on the label on most of them will give you the hook size for that yarn. If they don't, you can look at the millimeters for the knitting, and the millimeters correspond pretty much the same. Again, you would want to do a little gauge for yourself, maybe in the stitch, to see if you like how it knits up or how it feels. Because if you knit something or you crochet something too tight, same with knitting, it's stiffer and it doesn't have the drape that you want, or the softness. Sometimes you lose softness when you create something that's too tight. So if you've used a hook or a needle that's too small for the yarn that you have, it's not going to be pleasant. So I've chosen a bunch of colors in our Baroque Ultra Wool Fine, which is a great worsted weight yarn. Not to keep talking about prices, but this is about real value. It's 400 yards for $12. So you can get a lot of squares out of this. So we have the white, which you would use a lot of, and then I just chose some other colors that I thought were really, their colors I think are just beautiful. So this one is called Matcha, and this is a heathered green, and this is a heathered pink called Pink Lady, and this is another pink called Alyssum, and Fig. So you can think of these together with a white, and then suppose you wanted to put some other colors in. This one doesn't have a price tag, so I don't know, we need to fix that. I don't know what color that is, but it's a beautiful sort of caramel color. This one, oh my goodness, this one doesn't have a price tag either. We're going to have to go through oh, it does. I take that back. This one is called Breeze, also a heather color. So I'm building a stack of colors here, and this one is called Sour Cherry. And finally, this is in Vintage Sock, which would be just the same. We have both in the shop, and this one is called Sky Blue. So I think that would make a really pretty blanket, with this one as well. So there would be maybe my colors, and I kind of like that. So we have other colors, and you could do this in sort of a monochrome. You could do just a navy blue and white would be gorgeous, or navy blue with some other blues, a light blue in it. Or you could do colors that are all on one side of the color wheel, or you can do jewel tones, or whatever you want. So this is a fun project because you can use scraps that you have. You could do multicolored scraps that you have. So it's a lot of fun, and it's a project. If you do this, something like this, you can carry it in your purse if you want. You can make little squares while you're sitting around. And I'm looking at the back of this. It says, this is published in something called Cherry Heart, and I don't know what that is. But it says they have a group called Cherry Heart Group. Watch podcasts, join crochet, knit along, share your projects, and join Yarny Chit Chat. So there's something to look at or think about. So that's that. And finally, I have one last one, and here's the so this is for those of you who like granny squares and know how to do granny squares. This is, and oh, by the way, these are all, I believe, every one of these, with the exception of the gray summer scarf. I think the others are free patterns. You double check. Free. So we love free patterns, although, you know, these people work hard to make these patterns, so it's incredibly generous of them to give you a pattern for free. So this is called Ariana by Amy Christoffers, and she does a lot of designing for Baroque. So she's using Baroque Alanis. We've chosen Baroque Vintage to show you some possibilities. Now, you could do all kinds of, and this one I would stick to the yarn that they, or the gauge that they say, so that you get something that fits you. But you could use all kinds of colors in this. And I believe that most of it's just granny squares. But you know what? Now that I look at this, I have a feeling, I don't know if the band and the sleeves, that's my mistake, are knitted. So we'll have to find that out. I think I better get the pattern and see. In any case, I think it's a really cute pattern. So I just picked out a couple of combinations. I thought this was kind of similar to what they showed you. And these colors are Mushroom, Chandal, Sunny, and Mochi is the white. And I got just another group that I thought was pretty together, but we have tons of colors in worsted yarns. And this is, again, the Mochi is the white, Neptune, and my very favorite Smoke, and Calico. So this would be a very pretty combination for them. So I think that's it on crochet today. If you have other suggestions about crochet, I'm happy to hear them, so write something in the comments. Don't forget to like us, that helps, and share this with your friends if you'd like. I did have an announcement I wanted to make. We're going to offer a beginning knitting class starting probably in July, but I have to double check. I think Deanna will be teaching it, and it's for beginners. I think I have decided that it'll be for ages 16 and up, no one younger. But if you have a teenager who's anxious to learn to knit, we would welcome them. It will probably be a 4-week session, and but we'll see how that goes. Maybe we'll extend it a little bit. But if you'd like to learn to knit, if you have a kid who wants to learn to knit, if you have a neighbor, friend, aunt, uncle, whoever who's interested in knitting, I think it will happen on Monday afternoons. I don't know the exact time yet, but stay tuned, we'll let you know. And just again, a reminder that Bruce Weinstein will come back, and this is where I'm contradicting myself, to teach you how to be a faster knitter. So as I said, when I said it's not a race, but he's going to teach you how to be a better knitter and teach continental knitting. So, and maybe another one of his great stitches that he did earlier this spring. So stay tuned for that. It's on August 5th. It's an all-day workshop. We may have options to just do half of the day, but again, if you do the whole day, he brings lunch, and I can tell you his vegan lunches are fantastic. So I wish you a week or two of happy knitting. I'm going to be on hiatus for a couple of weeks, and Robin will be, maybe we'll have some guests, or just some regular emails that will come out, and then I'll be back, and with more, I hope, ideas that work for you, suggestions that you find helpful. So happy knitting, and we'll see you soon. Bye.